Thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're still having that conversation about the impact of the coronavirus on the economy and on your pocket as well. Joining us now is Samuel Karanja, is the CEO, Importers and Small Traders Association. Thank you for making time this morning.
Thank you, Trevor.
If you have any questions in regards to the impact of this to your pockets, 22422 is your way in. Just text us your name and where you're texting from and ask your question at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Mbija _K. Use the hashtag Daybreak and have those questions posed directly to my guests in studio this morning. Sam, the last time I spoke to you, you told me that the situation was really not good. It was really bad. Well, how is it right now? Has it changed? Is it getting better? How are your stocks looking like?
Trevor, right now there is a total lockdown, especially in China and other places that we get our goods. So we do not have any imports which are coming. So literally we have finished some of our stocks. We are selling nothing. And I remember in the last show that we had here, I said that we are big consumers of the cosmetic industry, especially in the region, and that industry has been hard hit. The other thing that which I like to say is that businesses are coming to a halt, and I can give an example of Kirinyaga Road, whereby we were having a conversation yesterday with the traders, and you find that spare parts of motorcycles are not coming at all, and spare parts of motor vehicles are also not coming at all. So you find that there are people who are literally not selling anything, and because you remember there was, and as I said here earlier, there was an amnesty which was there last year, which the president gave us, and that amnesty was to unlock the goods which had been held in the port for over a whole year. And so us being able to finish that supply, that supply that we had, or the stock that we had, we were now to go back to China again last year November, and also this year in January, which did not happen because of the virus. So when you're looking at the businesses are coming to a halt. The small medium entrepreneurs are hard hit by this coronavirus, and the traders, actually, some of them are literally at home. They have closed their shops. Yeah.
And there's also an instruction that all these traders, even as much as you're saying it's hard hit and they're selling nothing, the people who have stuff have been instructed not to increase the prices. Are they considering that? What options are they working with right now?
Well, I really had the president yesterday, and I think he had a point, but I also want to bring this other perspective. Number one, talk about market forces. Market forces, sometimes you may not be able to control them. Reason why? Because you may have a limited supply and high demand. And the other thing there is that you may not even be able to know the next supply that you're going to get. So with that, there has to be a balance. Obviously, there are people who had extortion, especially when it comes even to basic supplies. And I think the president was addressing to the basic supplies, whereby some people maybe, I think they escalated food stuff to some unimaginable, prices, which I think is immoral, as he said. And I share his sentiments. But when it comes to some supplies, especially, let's say, for example, motor vehicle supplies, obviously, the prices are going to be affected, and they are going to be affected in a big way. And you remember we predicted that if the virus continues not controlled in the world, the markets, the prices are going to escalate 3 or 4 or 5 times, and it's happening. And I think with that, something must be done, because if we are not able to control this, we are coming to a total lockdown. Yeah.
And with the options that the banks are giving, are you satisfied that that would help the small traders? They're giving maybe a break for a year or an extension. It's not exactly a break, an extension. Are you satisfied with that?
Let me not compare ourselves with the US, but I think the policy or the principle is still the same in terms of having incentives or trying to make or to cushion the small medium entrepreneurs. When I listened to banks yesterday, they were non-committal in terms of, the banking sector. We understand as small medium entrepreneurs that they are business entities belonging to people. Very true. But having said that, there's what we call collective responsibility. And the collective responsibility, I believe, and I think to my own my own perspective, that they should have come up with a policy that runs across the board, that says we are going to defer these loans for 1 year, because the moment when I come to the bank, to your bank or to my bank, and I tell my bank manager that I've been affected by coronavirus and I have to prove that, it's obvious I'm not in business. So what do I have to prove? Again, that coronavirus has affected my business, not any other thing. And I think being a huge industry that is the backbone of this country in terms of the economy, there should be a policy that dictates clearly that the small medium entrepreneurs have been cushioned, especially people with loans. What are these interests are we talking about? Are they going to be halted? You know, it has to be very clear, because truthfully, some banks can take advantage and say, okay, as much as you're going to help, you're going to help you this much. So there has to be a very clear direction on how we are going to handle this and to cushion the small medium entrepreneurs, because without that, any person can decide what they want to do. So if a bank can come and say, like, for example, I bank with whichever bank I bank with, and I tell them I've been affected, and they say, okay, what you're going to do, you're going to defer this loan for about 1 year, but in that 1 year, we are going to charge you this interest. So are you going to be able to bounce back? And my friend here can say, because he's an economist, can say that the impact, and it has to be real, you have to be very truthful, the impact of the coronavirus in the Kenyan economy and the world's economy, we are not going to go over it even in the next 1.5 years or 2 years. So what you are supposed to do is to have a cushion for small medium entrepreneurs so that they do not close shop. And you know that SMEs in the first 5 years, very few survive that period, from 0 to 5 years. Very few survive. And so this is a very, very important point whereby the government should now be able to take on head on and say, we are going to implement this policy to cushion the small medium entrepreneurs.
Okay. I want to give you all a chance to give the recommendations that you're now having, because the government is saying that they need recommendations to have the economic resilience strategy. As a small traders association, what are you going to be suggesting to them? What would you like to see enumerated?
There are people who have loans, and I think one of the things that is going to help the people who have loans, number one, is to stop the escalation of the interest.
Stop the interest.
Stop the interest.
Okay.
Once you stop the interest now, you can sit down with your banker and say, we are going to defer this loan for the next 5, 6, 7, 1 year. As you're doing that, make sure, let's see how much you can be able to pay in terms of after that 1 year. And the other thing is, if I had a loan with you and I've not finished that loan and you have deferred that loan for 1 year, can I be able to get another facility if I can be able to prove that I'm putting it in business? If I can be able to get another facility from the bank to support me, because you see, if I'm an importer, and most of our members are importers, they can tell you some cargo is stuck. And I even have some SMSs which were sent to me this morning. Excuse me, a person was supposed to get their spare parts, so they decided even to come by the cargo by air. Then that cargo was stopped in Dubai, so they can't get. So they were told, in case of anything, you're going to let you know, call this number. But from China to Dubai, your cargo is in Dubai, and we can trace it where it is, and it's here, but we do not know when you are going to supply it to you. So if I can be able to prove that, when this cargo comes, when now the lockdown is out and this cargo comes, and I don't have money to clear that, am I going to be assisted to do that? That's number one. Number two, for the small medium entrepreneurs, in terms of the mama mbogas and the people who have shops and the rest, this is the beginning of the year. There are so many things that they are supposed to pay. We are talking about licenses. We are talking about some of the things that the county government asks for. Can they get a reprieve out of what they are supposed to pay? Let's say, for example, the licenses have to be paid definitely, because the government has to collect taxes. That's true. But instead of the 15,000 shillings which is paid for a shop, can they be given maybe 5,000 shillings just to be able to commit themselves that they're in business? But as we are doing that, we are also giving you a cushion that you're not going to pay the 15,000 shillings. There's some amount of money which was even the county government was charging for things like I think the fire extinguishers and the rest, which was charging about 4,500 shillings. Can that be scrubbed out of the licenses so that we can be able to pay for the basics? For example, if it's parking, we can be able to pay for the parking. If we can be able to pay for the basics, but cushioning the small medium entrepreneurs. And the last but not least, we have people like the boda people and the mama mboga and the rest who have been chased away and they don't have designated areas of operation. Can the government give the small medium entrepreneurs designated areas of operation whereby they really know that if tomorrow, whatever happens, tomorrow I'm going to wake up to go to my workstation. Because that is the biggest issue. When you find that the border people are still being chased by the county government officials in the counties, and they are supposed to fend for their families. Do you have designated areas of operation? Let's provide for them at this particular time.
All right. Tony, at this point, what do you think are the options for the economic resilience strategy that the president is asking for? What should the institutions and also banks and all of them suggest? What should we be focusing on now?
Okay, that's a tight question. But I think Samuel has touched a number of things that needs to be done. I think one of the main things when he talks about we need the people who will need capital injection to their businesses. So that's where government can come in and provide an interest-free guarantee that you can able to inject. So you're not charged an interest on the loan that you're picking up. Government will take that cost. But at least if somebody can have funds that he can inject in his company, it means he can remain afloat for a period of time. I think that's one of the main things that government needs to look at on how do you stabilize such kind of a company, especially SMEs. Those are the biggest hits that will be taking the biggest hit. I think the other one would be that the company is quite a number. I think VAT is one of the main tax type of tax that government can defer, so that companies can remain with some amount to remain afloat with. The issue is that you're able to make many people have liquidity so that they can remain within business. That's the main thing that government should look at, especially taxation is one of the main things. I think Kenya, we are heavily taxed, so there are many taxes that you can work with. We talk about essential items that are needed during this time, food stuff, and you talk about soap, you talk about hand sanitizers and all those essential commodities. You can do away with the VAT for now until we stabilize. The other thing would be that we look at the non-tariff barriers that were within these trading commodities. Government can facilitate through tax incentives locally for production. You don't charge, especially like food, county to county excess duties that counties to counties charge for moving of goods, moving of food items from one market to another. Those are things that government can work with counties that you eliminate such things. So there's free flow of goods, essential goods, so that you don't have a high cost of living. Talk about medicine items and all that. If they're being imported, I think government can facilitate, but there is no taxes or very limited taxes on it, so that we remain with the essential items that are needed at this point in time.
Okay. Shiv?
Okay. So largely in line with what has been said before, but some of the things which we need to look at, definitely we need a business stabilization fund to come out into the economy. And also just as a show of assurance that, look, in these difficult times, government is willing to stand behind you from the business side. To reiterate, they have done pretty well on the medical side in terms of effective communication and reacting very quickly. We now need to see the same on the business and economic side. We've been very clear, there needs to be a number of ways in which either moratoriums can be extended, principal payments can be extended. Even if you have a loan today, and just referring to what Mr. Karanja was saying, if you're paying principal plus interest, it's a discussion to be had and say, look, I'll continue to pay you interest payments, I won't pay you principal over the next 1 year. It doesn't necessarily have to be a total break, but there has to be concessions which will benefit those who are being affected. There's also looking at increasing liquidity in the hands of the ordinary Kenyan. That can be done through reduction in corporate taxes and also payroll taxes. Not over a long time, but just if it's half payroll tax over the next 3 months, it could mean a lot of benefits and a lot more consumption power into the economy, which will ultimately lead to more spending and cushion any impact that we have. Not saying that we're not going to have an impact. We will see a 10 to 25% impact on GDP growth.
But how do you do that when some of the small-scale traders are largely unregistered and unregulated? For example, the Gikomba market now How will this business stabilization fund get to them and they're not even registered?
It's definitely not a one-shoe-fits-all strategy. There's going to be different incentives that will impact different businesses. Those in the formal sector can benefit from payroll, corporate, business stabilization funds. At the same time, those informal traders can benefit from any sort of incentive packages which are put out. Anything which is an indirect taxation, such as VAT on essential items, scrapping that off, excise duty, giving those off for the next 3 months. Even though you're not directly putting money in someone's hand, you're indirectly reducing their costs and ultimately increasing their spending power. So it's not a one-shoe-fits-all. You can't have one strategy that will deal with anyone, but I think it's been well covered that at this point in time, you have to look at every single economic measure, and not to the point that you're going to say, I'm going to go and make it back in the future. That's not the goal. It's not to say, okay, I lost 100 billion shillings of revenue, now I'm going to overtax you and make it back. At the moment, it's more, how do I stabilize the economy now as government, fully well knowing that the future benefit of doing that is the long-term longevity of these businesses that will ultimately lead to tax revenue over the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. In some, you need to jump in.
Yeah, let me chip in what he has said, and I think this is a high time that the government can take advantage of, like what he's saying, to collect data of small, medium entrepreneurs. You see, as associations, we can only register the members who approach us and come, and we have the same vision and the same mission statement, and we exactly know what we are doing. That's why we are importers and small traders, because it consists of importers and SMEs. Now, there was a proposal which was supposed to be there in every county, whereby there are going to be stations whereby the government is going to be collecting data of small, medium entrepreneurs. And it's a high time the government knows exactly how many small, medium entrepreneurs are there in the country, so that they can be able to plan even ahead economically. The moment you have these spots or points of getting and collecting data, now you can be able now to disband that fund, because you exactly know Karanja is in this place doing this. And even when it comes to a point of taxation, now they can be able to see when Karanja is doing this, he gets this amount of money every month, and he can be able to cushion him. We are going to facilitate him with this amount of money so that he can be able to boost his business. Without information, it's a little bit difficult for you to be able to dispense, resources even to the small, medium entrepreneurs. And that is why when it is structured and bring all the stakeholders on board, when it's structured that even associations can come with their membership and say, as members of importers and small traders, this is our membership, this is our portfolio. And our members, we can now be able to bargain from that platform, whereby we can now maybe approach a bank and say, with our 50,000 membership, this particular or this percentage of membership, they need this amount of money, and you can be able now to collect the data and come down to the point whereby now you are coming and injecting some capital in my business. Right. And I think that's what the government can be able to do. Number two, I'm also thinking let's have an open conversation in terms of the free flow of food from one county to another. I heard yesterday that one of the governors said they're going to close the markets. But as we do that, let's know that there are people who live from hand to mouth. Once we have a total lockdown, who is going to feed these people? Once we have, there are people who feed from the markets as much as there is what's happening on the ground. I think the government or the county government should take responsibility of being able to sanitize their environment in a way whereby we are going to reduce the infection curve. And as we are doing that, we don't also lock down the livelihood of many other people, because when you go to the market, the SMEs, the Mama Mboga, they don't have money in the bank so that they can come and maybe see what some of the Kenyans did, going to supermarkets and having maybe a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months stock. Some people live from hand to mouth. The 300 shillings that they are going to make today is what they are going to feed on. They are going to pass through the supermarket and buy unga and buy milk and go and feed their children. So we have to think of balancing those two. The free flow of food from one country to another, the cess that is supposed to be paid is supposed to be scrapped, so that every person can be able to access to that food without compromising the health quality.
All right. I have to take a quick break now. When we come back, there's still a lot of feedback. Also, I'll read through some of them and call in Carol Karaoke, who's the KEPSA CEO. She'll be joining us on the phone just to find out what their suggestions will be for the economic resilience strategy that is now being sought after by the government. And also keep your views coming on 22422. That's SMS line. Just text me your name and where you're texting from and your question, or comment at Trevor Mbija. That's on Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya, at Zinzi_K, #Daybreak. See you in just a bit.